Hey guys, welcome to Backcountry Workshop. So we're going to go for another reaction today. So this one is basically how British spies gathered intel during the Cold War. So this will be quite interesting actually. About 13 minutes long. So after a little intro, we're going to go straight into it. But don't forget to hit that like, subscribe and comment down below.
Getting out the tank. Wait. Hello, pal. Okay, start moving forward.
I wonder if he was defecting there. Interesting. I think they got caught taking pictures.
We were in the backyard, and there will probably never be a time in history when we will have this kind of an opportunity again.
We were spying, and they knew it, and we knew they knew it.
729. 737.
He sort of ignored the warning, and he was shot. They had to cover up the chief of staff.
A lot of people were rammed, they were pushed off the road, they were shot at. It was clearly dangerous.
Can you get the numbers at all?
This is actual footage filmed by British Cold War spies. At the height of the Cold War, a small group of British, American and French troops spent their days driving into enemy territory and spying on Soviet forces.
And from there, that's where we hope to see the next series of kit trains.
They were the only Western forces to regularly get up close and personal with the enemy.
That's crazy. Imagine being there. I mean, they must have been on a proper eyes everywhere all the time in case they got caught.
This is the story of Brixmas, a tale of espionage, capture behind enemy lines and death in foreign territory.
They've stopped, they have seen us. Get ready to go, Al.
Modern-day Berlin, the height of sophistication and liberal German democracy. Checkpoint Charlie, once the official border between East and West, now a tourist attraction with people dressed in period costume posing for photos. Parts of the Berlin Wall itself remain standing, a colourful reminder of darker times. But at the height of the Cold War, the divided city was a fearful place.
When you were being chased, when you got caught, particularly if you were on a training area, a lot of the Soviet troops had live ammunition, and so therefore the first thing they would do is surround the vehicle, and if they had weapons, they would all point them at the vehicle.
You don't go to someone else's country, drive around not following their regulations and expect it to be not dangerous.
The cooperation that had seen the Allies defeat Nazi Germany in the Second World War ended very soon after it. But amid the destruction and devastation, the Allies took drastic action, carving up Germany into 4 different occupation zones. In the east, roughly a third of the country would now be controlled by Russia, and the remaining 2/3 in the west would come under American, British and French control. The German capital, Berlin, was also split into east and west, a border which became literally set in stone in 1961 when the communist-controlled East erected the Berlin Wall. Mutual distrust and the constant fear of nuclear war led to the paranoia and suspicion of the Cold War years. But part of the deal that had divided Germany led to the creation of military missions. These were meant to liaise with the other wartime allies, but in reality, the men of Brixmas, the British Commander-in-Chief's mission to the Soviet forces, were in a perfect position to spy on their former ally. Under liaison rules, 31 men in the unit had permission to travel into what was now enemy territory.
Nothing in the window. Seem to have black tabs. Scud again, black tabs. No other monitoring.
And even though they had to wear uniform and drive marked cars, they were able to bend the rules beyond breaking point to gather vital intelligence on exactly what the Soviets were up to.
We didn't ever have any confidential talks inside the house. We always went into the garden, and then we subsequently found out after reunification that the Stasi had a long-range microphone across the lake. It'd be nice to have gone and reflected on that. You know.
People who used to spy for a
Absolutely crazy, isn't it? I mean, I was my father was in the army, and we were living in Germany from 84 to 8-9 years. So we were there while the Berlin Wall was up and when it came down. But I never realised, how crazy it was. Never.
living, like Dave Butler, don't get less curious.
There's a car in the drive, and
They do get a little more careful.
years gone by I would have jumped over the fence.
In the late 80s, Dave Butler served in Brixmas. He was a tour NCO, working with a tour officer and a driver as part of a close-knit three-man team. 30 years after the wall came down, Dave is back in the former East Germany. He's looking for the man who sheltered him behind the lines and a former Soviet adversary, now willing to go on the record about the deaths and cover-ups that were once state secrets.
Must be proper eerie for him driving through all that from the job he used to do. Absolutely, oh my God, mind-boggling.
Former Soviet Liberosa tank range is where Dave made one of his most important finds.
We very much are where the T-80s used to run down here, firing on the move.
This is actual footage shot by Brixmas in the 1980s when they were a covert intelligence unit. For British troops at this time, Cold War Germany was a dangerous place to be, and this kind of access to the east was almost unheard of for Western forces.
Oh, that looks like it goes. Yeah. So this is where the tank would have driven into. Bearing in mind, what you have to remember here is that none of these trees were here. 33 years ago, this was a tank range. So there was nothing here between here and the 4 kilometres.
I can zoom in on. Can you get the numbers?
Yeah, I got that one.
729. 737.
Brixmas tour officers and NCOs would use discarded ammunition and kit they found here to extrapolate key information about the thousands of Soviet troops who were garrisoned in East Germany.
As soon as the tanks had left, we would drive onto the range and we would start to scavenge and try to pick up anything we could. The Soviets were very poor in their discipline, in that if a tank round or something like that didn't work, they would just throw it over the top. This is where we got hold of their fin stabilised, discarding Sabo round, complete ones that, just because it didn't quite go in the breech, it was a little bent, they threw it over the side. And I'm sure that our intelligence agencies made a lot of intelligence out of that. So this looks like a piece of Russian discarded munition.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm just kind of glued to it because I'm mega interested into it. Like it's just, surprised some of these. I mean, I think the lady said there obviously must have been some sort of deaths, but I wonder, like, how many they did kill.
Now, I'm just trying to see. I think that's a Russian. Well, I would call a P, but we were a Russian R, and then there's a hyphen, 3 dashes, followed by. I guess that's a 3. Okay, so I think this is RPG.
Can you get over and turn around? Yeah.
In the 1980s, the T-80 tank was at the heart of the Soviet war machine. And top of NATO's target acquisition list was something called an explosive reactive armour box, or ERA box.
So, actually, I'll let her explain it, and then I'll explain about what we did as anti-tanks in the Marines.
A clever piece of armour that tripled the resistance of the brand new T-80.
So, what would happen is like the Milan and that, it could, if you were having a direct fire, they would fire out on a warning, like it knew it was shot at, fire out, and then blow the. So it was an anti-tank weapon basically, and that's why the javelin got invented, so you could hit from the top because they didn't have any top protection. So I mean, absolutely nuts.
Finding an ERA box was so important in intelligence terms, the Brixmas team hatched a daring and dangerous plan to get hold of one.
And the idea was that the tanks would load on a ramp very similar to the one behind us here onto the railway flats, and we would board the train as it pulled out, get onto it, find a tank and take the box off. The challenge that we had, of course, was the boxes were all held on by nuts, and we didn't know what size nut it actually was. We took some close-up photography of it and then did some telemetry on it, but we still couldn't be sure. So we found a spanner, this spanner actually, which has got 4 different sizes on. So we figured that one of these would fit. That was the plan.
But in fact, on a routine range scavenge, Dave struck lucky.
And I was just walking into a revetment similar to this one, and what caught my eye was just a little bit of green sticking out of the sand like this, and so I thought, oh, that looks odd. And all I did was I bent down like this, reached in, picked it up, and pulled out what I knew instantly was an ERA box, and suddenly around me was all this music and stuff like that, a bit like, you know, if you'd won the lottery. You know, it's that one of those moments in time when you just know you've got something.
Here they come.
Analysis of the ERA box revealed NATO anti-tank weaponry was not strong enough to penetrate Soviet armour, sending weapons designers back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
All such discoveries were made as part of a 3-man team. Dave often worked with retired Major General Peter Williams.
There we go.
With both men spending many days at a time out hunting for intelligence.
Because this Hotel Mercure here was the Inter Hotel, wasn't it? It was the big prestige communist hotel.
Yeah, we always used to say in Dresden, the Hotel Neva, and interesting enough, we were always put on the 13th floor, and we always seemed to get the same rooms. So we just concluded that the Stasi had them all wired and that.
We went on a town tour once in Wittenberg, and it was the weekend of the East German Guard Dog Training Championship or something, and it turned out that nobody had warned the Stasi that we were coming, and there were no other rooms available, and lots of people were turfed out of their rooms so that the Stasi could have the rooms on either side of ours, and it was all rather unsubtle.
And when we used to go on the cultural tours, of course, I always used to make sure I put the kids where the narcs were and then take their picture, and you could always tell the narcs because in the background they were the ones looking in their newspapers and appearing not to.
And they didn't want their photograph taken because eventually the photograph would make it to the BND, to the German security services, and then they could never be deployed in the West as a sleeper agent or whatever.
I love that. That's awesome. I love the fact that they're talking about that. I love this sort of stuff.
A whole series of photographs that were sent to me by a chap who wrote a book about the mission here, Mark Proofer, and he met a mysterious Herr Bloom. And Herr Bloom, when he said, I was helped by Peter Williams to write this book, gave me lots of pictures and things. He said, Captain Williams. And he went next door in his flat and came back with a Stasi photographic surveillance file of us in an Opel Senator at Barleben. So there's Jeff Fairbairn and me and Phil Claridge, and we arrived, and it's got a whole sort of thing. If you wanted to be immortalised as very professional, this is not the series of photographs.
That's awesome, isn't it? I love that. I think that's amazing.
We got very bored. It was a very hot day, and at one stage I sat on the roof of the car with a beanie hat on, reading a book. And Jeff Fairbairn took his shirt off to get a suntan.
Yeah.
And then a train came along, and the Stasi file even has the train, which was full of East German artillery and things like this. But we were unaware that they were watching us while we were watching them, as it were.
Like that spy versus spy, isn't it? You know.
But in those encounters, it wasn't always the West who came out on top.
Here we go. It's a caution coming round again.
If the men on the ground overstep the mark, consequences could be severe.
I mean, I'm going to... Right, go. Let's come out on that. Wow, that's crazy. That was just a little intro to it. Obviously, that's like a series in it, and I find that mega fascinating. I really do. So, yeah, I mean, imagine their job during that period, and obviously she was going to say that if you stepped the mark, that was it. You got brown bread. So phenomenal. That is actually really cool. Yeah, I'm a little bit speechless because I'm not too sure what to say about it, because I think you watch all these movies and you see it, and I come from a military background, but I kind of forget about that sort of side of it in those days, how proper kind of behind enemy lines they were. So absolutely amazing, guys. Look, thanks for hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we've got some more coming up, so hit that bell as well, and everyone stay safe.